Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the football betting series here on YouTube Premier League edition. We had a fantastic result last week out. We went 2 from 3 from our Premier League picks and 4 out of 4 on the continent. That means our overall record stands at 9 wins with 3 losses and 0 pushes to this point, and a total profit of £103.99. I've got a few more picks in today's episode, so if you think I'm talking some sense, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. Without further ado, let's get into it. We kick things off with the West London derby as Chelsea play host to Fulham. And Chelsea, they really showed their class away to West Ham, but it was the Irons who took the lead early on from a Paqueta strike from the edge of the box. The shot wasn't right in the corner, but the spin appeared to confuse a diving Robert Sanchez, and it gave West Ham the lead. However, this advantage would not last long, as João Pedro rose highest from a corner to level up the scores in the 15th minute. Parity would only be a temporary state of affairs as Pedro Neto and Enzo Fernández would score to give Chelsea a 3-1 lead going into the half-time break. A quick look at the first half numbers really shows the gulf between the two sides. West Ham did manage the same amount of shots as their visitors, but really the quality of each shot was incredibly poor and consisted mainly of pot shots from outside the box when they couldn't break through the Chelsea defensive line. In the second half, Chelsea eased up a little bit. A quick 4-minute double from Caicedo and Chalobah sealed the deal with a 5-1 victory. It's West Ham's worst start in the first 2 games of a Premier League season in club history, and Chelsea maintain their unbeaten start to the year. When we take a look at Chelsea's form, as I said, unbeaten across the first 2 games of the season, and when we look back to last season's form, we can also see that Chelsea were unbeaten in the last 7 games of the 24-25 season, winning 6 of these matches. They play a Fulham side who saw their first half scores finish 0-0 thanks to Bruno Fernandes missing a penalty. However, Manchester United would be the side that would make the breakthrough in the second half. Bryan Mbeumo's corner was met by Euro and deflated off Muñoz to give the Red Devils a 1-0 lead. However, parity would be restored 15 minutes later with super sub Emil Smith-Rowe, as he scored with one of his very first touches of the game. And 1-1 is how the game would finish. When we take a look at the stats though, we can see that Fulham more than held their own, and some may argue that they did enough to earn all 3 points, but I do think a draw was the fair result. In terms of form for Fulham, it's back-to-back 1-1 draws to start the season, although they are unbeaten. When you consider that they came from behind in both matches, this does indicate an incredible amount of resilience, which will be key moving forward this season. Longer term, the Cottagers are unbeaten in 3 of their last 4 matches on the road. When we take a look at the head-to-head record, the last encounter between these sides took place in April at Craven Cottage. Fulham took the lead in the first half as Sessegnon won the ball back from an unsuspecting Reece James, poked it through to Alex Iwobi, and the Nigerian's 2-touch finish saw the Cottagers end the first half ahead. However, as we can see from the stats, Chelsea only grew into the game from here in the second period, and this pressure would tell late on. First through Tariq George, who scored in the 83rd minute from the edge of the box to level the scores, and then deep into stoppage time in the 93rd minute, Neto snatched all 3 points for the Blues, with his strike on the spin to hand Chelsea a 2-1 victory. Longer term, we can see that Chelsea have enjoyed the West London derby recently, winning 4 of the last 5 encounters overall, but their record at Stamford Bridge is also very strong, winning each of the last 2 matchups against Fulham at the Bridge, but also unbeaten in the last 18 Premier League encounters, which is a record dating back to March of 2002. My prediction for this game is that Chelsea's strong start to the season will be a worrying prospect for a Fulham side who have yet to find their feet. The West London derby record points towards a win for Maresca's side, and I see no reason across the first 2 games why this trend will be bucked. Chelsea also have an extra 2 days of rest, which can only serve them well, with Chelsea playing their last Premier League fixture on a Friday night, and Fulham Manchester United happened on Sunday afternoon. With all of this taken into account, I'm going to back Chelsea to win for a full stake here in bet number 1. Our second selection sees Manchester United playing host to Burnley, and Manchester United, they were held to a draw in their last match against Fulham. Bruno Fernandes missed a penalty and it really did cost them, as he allowed a bump from the referee to distract him before skying the spot kick clear into Rowe's head. Euro then thought his header was the breakthrough, but this was later awarded as a Muñoz own goal. And then in the second half, with the lead, Manchester United kind of stopped pressing for a second goal. When we take a look at the second half numbers, we can see that Fulham generated around 2.5 times the XG compared to their hosts. Therefore, it wouldn't have surprised many people to know that Emil Smith-Rowe equalised to split the points, with the final score finishing 1-1. In terms of form, this recent result does show that Manchester United have gone one better than their opening day loss against Arsenal, but they're still yet to win a game this season. Taking into account the end of last year, Manchester United have won just one of their last 6 Premier League matches at Old Trafford, and Manchester United fans will really be hoping for a stronger showing against a recently promoted side, and hopefully their first win of the season. They play a Burnley side who picked up their first win of the season against Sunderland last week. The Black Cats had the better of the first half without making their pressure pay, and then Burnley flipped the script in the second period. Whilst creating less chances and they were dominated for possession, they were the more clinical of the two promoted sides. Josh Cullen opened the scoring early on in the second period before Jadon Anthony killed the game late on, with the second of Burnley's 2 in a 2-0 win at Turf Moor. In terms of form, it's 1 win and 1 loss for Burnley on their return to the big time, but when we take a look at the away form, Burnley did really well last year in the Championship. They won 5 of their last 6 away games on their way to automatic promotion, and perhaps they were brought back to reality just a bit with a 3-0 loss on Matchday 1 against Spurs. They're going to hope this is a bump in the road as opposed to a regular occurrence as they seek survival this season. When we take a look at the head-to-head record, the last meeting between these sides took place in April of 2024. A late Zeki Amdouni penalty cancelled out Anthony's earlier contribution to see Burnley earn a 1-1 draw at Old Trafford. Longer term, whilst the Red Devils would have been disappointed to have only drawn their last game, that result did continue a run of 7 consecutive matches without defeat against Burnley. The last time that the Clarets picked up all 3 points was in January of 2020, where Chris Wood and Jay Rodriguez netted in a 2-0 win for Burnley. The Manchester United manager of the time was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, if anyone is interested. My prediction for today's game is that Manchester United look a different beast compared to last season. It seems that Amorim has had a full summer to get his tactical ideas across, and it's paying dividends. They host a Burnley side who are struggling so far to acclimatise to the pace of the Premier League. Even with their win against Sunderland, they had much less of the ball and fewer shooting chances created. If that trend continues, I do see them being in trouble this season. As such, all signs are pointing to a Manchester United win for me, and I'm going to be backing that for a full stake here in bet number 2. Our third pick sees Sunderland playing host to Brentford, and Sunderland, after a goalless first half against Burnley, it was Josh Cullen who broke the deadlock in Sunderland's last game. Despite Sunderland being the better side statistically, it was Burnley that were the more clinical, Jadon Anthony doubling the leads towards the end of the game to put the result beyond all doubt, with the final score finishing 2-0 to Burnley. Form-wise, it's 1 win and 1 loss for Sunderland, following their 3-0 win on the opening day, which may have shocked a few neutrals and Sunderland fans alike. I say that because when we look at Sunderland's form towards the end of last season, we can see a record of 5 consecutive losses and no win in their final 6 championship games on their way to the playoffs. However, the Black Cats have recruited well in the summer, and Regis Lebris really got them playing some nice stuff early on this year. They host a Brentford side who bested Aston Villa in their last game. Didn't take Dango Otara very long to make an impact for his new club, scoring just 12 minutes into his debut. The Bees almost made it 2-0 towards the end of the first half, but that second goal was chalked off for a foul on goalkeeper Emi Martinez by Collins. This scare did seem to wake Aston Villa up, and they did start the second half as the better of the sides, as we can see from the numbers. They did look the more likely to score, but alas, no goal would come for the Villains, and Brentford would hold on to their 1-0 advantage for the win. In terms of form, it's 1 win and 1 loss to start the year for the Bees, which sees them appropriately in mid-table. But when we focus on just away form in the Premier League, Brentford's opening day loss to Forest put an end to a 4-game unbeaten streak on the road to round off last season. When we take a look at the head-to-head records, the last encounter between Sunderland and Brentford, we need to go all the way back to February of 2018 in a fixture which took place in the Championship. Brentford picked up a 2-0 win at the Stadium of Light thanks to a first-half blitz from Makocho and Neil Maupay. In fact, these sides have only squared off one other time in recent history, and that result was a 3-3 win back in October of 2017. So Brentford certainly have the better of the head-to-head record here. My prediction for today's game is that both sides will fancy their chances of picking up some more points in this one. I think neither side will back down from the challenge, and they're both absolutely better going forwards than they are defending at the back, and as such, it's a perfect combination for looking at both teams to score. Now, Sunderland may have failed to see both teams score in their first 2 Premier League matches, but all 3 of their Championship playoff games saw both teams to score at the end of last season. Whereas Brentford, they've seen both teams to score in 1 of their 2 Premier League games so far this season, and 4 of their last 6 if you include the end of last year. When we take a look at the head-to-head record, one of the last two encounters saw both teams to score, but this was back in 2017, so take that with a pinch of salt. All things considered, I do like both teams to score, and I'm going to back this for a full stake here in bet number 3. We finish things off today with the matchday's most exciting fixture, Liverpool playing host to Arsenal. And Liverpool turned in an interesting display against Newcastle on matchday 2. The Reds were far from their best, but they did lead at half-time thanks to a bit of individual brilliance from Brian Gravenberch. Right at the end of the first half, though, Anthony Gordon would get a straight red card for his really naughty challenge on Virgil van Dijk, studs up on the Dutchman's calf. Liverpool didn't allow this to distract them as Hugo Ekitike scored 1 minute into the second period to give Liverpool a 2-0 lead. However, St James is a funny place to go, and counterintuitively, Newcastle actually played better than their visitors despite being down to 10. Bruno Guimaraes would peg back a goal with winning his header against Kerkez at the back post, before Asula would level the scores late on in the 88th minute. However, football is a cruel game, and against the run of play, Liverpool would find a winning goal in the 100th minute. This was thanks to 16-year-old substitute Ngamoa. 3-2 the final score, and a big 3 points for Liverpool. In terms of form, that late winner does make it back-to-back wins for Liverpool to start off their title defence, but they've looked far from convincing at the back this season. Liverpool are very strong at home, and including last year's form, we can see they're unbeaten in their last 19 games at Anfield. The last time the Reds were beaten at home, we have to go all the way back to September of 2024, where they lost 1-0 to Nottingham Forest, thanks to Callum Hudson-Odoi's second-half strike on the counter. They host an Arsenal side who really showed their class in their first home game of the season against Leeds. The Gunners ran the show from start to finish, winning out on every major win predictor statistic in their 5-0 victory. Goals coming from Saka, and there were 2 braces in the match from Timber and Gyökeres, and that had the Emirates bouncing. The only slight negative in this game is that this was an expected result against a side recently promoted from the Championship, but with a record of 6 goals scored and none conceded, Arsenal are sitting pretty at the top of the Premier League through 2 games. In terms of form, it's back-to-back wins for Arsenal, and it's really set down a marker of intent as they hope to secure the Premier League title this season, following 3 consecutive seasons of finishing second. Taking a look at the away form in the Premier League, Arsenal were unbeaten in their last 16 away matches. For their last loss on the road, we need to go all the way back to early November, where they lost by 1-0 to an informed Newcastle side, with Alexander Isak scoring in the 12th minute as the key difference between the sides. When we take a look at the head-to-head records, the last encounter between these sides took place in May, with Liverpool already crowned champions. Gakpo and Diaz hit Arsenal with a quick 1-2 in the 20th and 21st minute to put the champions 2-0 ahead at the interval. And perhaps some complacency crept in here for Liverpool as Arsenal looked to take over the game in the second period. Martinelli's 47th minute strike started the comeback for the Gunners, and that was later fully realised by Moreno's goal in the 70th minute. From here on out, all of the momentum swung to the away side, and they may have gone on to win the match if it wasn't for Moreno's red card, which reduced Arsenal to 10 men in the final 10 minutes. From here on out, Liverpool looked the more likely side to score, but the game would finish on as even, 2-2. Longer term, this result made it back-to-back 2-2 draws between these sides, but most importantly continued a run of 6 Premier League games unbeaten for Arsenal over Liverpool. The last victory for Liverpool came back in March of 2022, with goals scored by Bobby Firmino and Diogo Jota, seeing them pick up a 2-0 win at the Emirates. My prediction for today's game is that both of these sides have got off to a good start in the Premier League, and this fixture, although it's only matchday 3, could have seismic consequences for the title race. Both of these sides have remarkable firepower in their squads, as well as good defenders like Virgil van Dijk, Gabriel and Saliba. Despite the strength in defence here, I struggle to see a clean sheet for either side, so I'm looking at both teams to score. Liverpool have seen each of the last 7 Premier League games see both teams to score, and each of their last 5 matches at Anfield as well. Whereas Arsenal have seen both teams to score in just 4 of their last 7 Premier League games, but away from home, this result has come in 2 of their last 3 Premier League matches. When we take a look at the head-to-head record, this is the real kicker here for me, as each of the last 6 Premier League encounters have seen both teams to score, and at Anfield, both teams to score has come in each of the last 3 matchups, as well as 6 of the last 7 encounters. All of these factors taken into account, I'm going to back both teams to score for a full stake here in bet number 4, and the final bet of today's episode. So there we have it, 4 picks in today's episode, starting off with the West London derby. We're backing Chelsea to pick up the win against Fulham, odds of 1.55, a £50 full stake to return 27.50. Also on the Saturday, Manchester United Burnley. We're backing the Red Devils to pick up their first win of the season, odds of 1.37, a £50 full stake to return £18.50. Sunderland Brentford, both teams to score, odds of 1.81, a £50 full stake to return £40.50. And then on the Sunday, the biggest game of the weekend, Liverpool versus Arsenal, both teams to score, odds of 1.73, £50 full stake to return £37.50. So across the weekend, we're going to be risking £200 to hopefully pick up as much as £123 on the nose. Will we do so? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to tune into the next episode. But if you have made it to this point in the video, please drop a like down below and subscribe to this channel for more content. Don't forget to check out the continental picks in the pinned comment down below, and as always, have yourself a lovely day.